I never knew how close I came to never being born. Years later, my mom told me a story that shocked me. When she first found out she was pregnant with me, she wasn't sure they could afford to have a baby. My dad didn't make much money at the time, and they were barely managing to get by. They lived paycheck to paycheck, worrying about rent, food, and bills. Bringing a child into that situation seemed impossible. But then something unexpected happened. My dad's parents, my grandparents, found out about the pregnancy. Instead of being worried, they were overjoyed. Not only did they support my parents emotionally, but they also helped them in a way that changed everything. They gave my mom and dad their house, a nice home in a safe neighborhood with good schools nearby. They also promised to help financially whenever it was needed. It was because of them that my parents felt ready to have me. I was born in that house, and for the first few years of my life, everything was wonderful. My grandparents were always around. They picked me up, played with me, and looked after me when my mom was at work. They took me to the park, read me bedtime stories, and even sneaked me treats when my mom wasn't looking. They made me feel special and loved. When I turned 6 and started school, my grandparents still took care of me. Every day they picked me up after school, and we had little adventures. Sometimes we got ice cream. Other times, we went to the playground. Those days were some of the happiest in my life. I felt safe, loved, and cared for. But then, everything changed. I still remember the night it all fell apart. I was supposed to be asleep, but loud voices woke me up. My mom and dad were having a huge argument. I couldn't understand everything they were saying, but I heard words like betrayal and, "How could you?" Their voices were filled with anger and hurt. Then I heard the front door slam shut. Curious and scared, I peeked out of my window. I saw my dad walking unsteadily toward his car, holding a bottle in his hand. Later, I learned it was whiskey. My heart pounded as I watched him get in and start the car. The tires screeched as he sped off into the night. That was the last time I ever saw my dad alive. The next morning, 3 police officers came to our house. I didn't understand much, but I knew something was wrong when my mom collapsed to the floor, sobbing. The officers told her my dad had been in a car accident. He lost control and crashed. He didn't survive. The funeral was confusing for me. I didn't fully understand what was happening. I just held my mom's hand while people cried around me. My grandparents hugged me tightly, their faces wet with tears. I didn't know what to say or do. After the funeral, everything started changing too quickly. My mom seemed to move on fast, too fast. Within months, she had a new man in her life. Before I knew it, they were married, and she was expecting another baby. "You're going to have a little sister, Linda," Mom told me, her eyes shining with excitement. "Isn't that wonderful?" I nodded, but I didn't know how to feel. Everything was happening so fast. I missed my dad. I missed how things used to be. I also noticed something strange. Grandma and Grandpa stopped visiting. They had always been around, and now they were just gone. One day, I finally asked my mom, "Why don't Grandma and Grandpa come to see me anymore?" But she didn't answer. She just looked away. One day, I finally asked, "Mom, why don't Grandma and Grandpa visit us anymore?" Her face turned cold. "They don't want anything to do with us anymore, Linda," she said firmly. "They left because I started a new family." Then, after a moment, her expression softened. "At least they gave us this house and helped pay for your school. We should be grateful for that." A few months after Mom remarried, my little sister was born. I remember Mom saying she was born early, but even as a child, something about that didn't seem right. Still, there was too much happening in my life for me to think about it for long. My new stepfather, Kevin, worked as a driver, and Mom kept her job as a salesperson. We weren't rich, but we had what we needed, or at least that's what I was told. But from the very beginning, I could tell that Kevin didn't like me. At dinner, he would glare at me across the table, his jaw tightening whenever I spoke. "Can you keep that kid quiet?" he would snap at my mom. "I'm trying to eat in peace." Mom would quickly try to calm him down. "Linda, honey, why don't you go to your room? I'll bring you your dinner later." At first, I didn't understand why she was sending me away, but soon it became normal. Kevin got angry often, and I seemed to be the one who made him the most upset. When Mom wasn't around, he would say cruel things to me. His face twisted with anger as he muttered, "You're nothing but a freeloader. A burden. You know that, right?" I didn't respond. I just nodded and swallowed my tears because what else could I do? The way Kevin treated me and the way he treated my little sister were completely different. With her, he was kind and loving. He bounced her on his knee, showered her with gifts, and spoke to her in a sweet, playful voice. "There's my little angel," he would coo. "Daddy's got a surprise for you." It made my stomach turn. Mom, desperate to keep Kevin happy, started finding ways to keep me out of sight. Whenever Kevin came home, she would quickly send me to my room and lock the door behind me. I would sit there for hours, listening to the sounds of laughter, conversation, and clinking dishes from the other side of the door. I didn't understand why I had to eat alone, why I couldn't move freely in my own house, why I was treated like I didn't belong. As I got older, it only got worse. Family holidays? I wasn't invited. Trips to visit Kevin's friends or relatives. I was left behind. Even when people came to our house, I was told to stay in my room and be quiet. "We don't want to upset Kevin," Mom would say, her eyes pleading. "You know how he gets." And I did know. I had seen his anger. I had heard the crashes and bangs when something made him mad. So I stayed quiet. I stayed out of the way. I became a ghost in my own home. The only time I felt a little bit normal was when Mom took me with her to run errands or go shopping. But even then, it wasn't fun or relaxing. It was always rushed, always serious. She never let me wander or enjoy myself. "We can't take too long," Mom would say, checking her watch nervously. "Kevin will be home soon." As the years passed, I became quieter. I kept to myself more and more. At school, I barely spoke to anyone. I felt invisible. But in my room, inside my imagination, I could escape. I created stories in my mind, big adventures where I was the hero, where people cared about me and wanted me around. When I turned 17, something unexpected happened. Since I spent most of my time alone in my room, I had become really good at using the internet. It was my way to escape from real life. One day, while browsing online, I found a publishing company looking for new writers, people who could create stories for children and teenagers. On a whim, I sent in a few of my stories. I didn't expect much, but to my surprise, they loved them. Before I knew it, I was working with them regularly. I wrote stories and even helped create educational apps for kids. For the first time in years, I felt proud of myself. My ideas were being published, people liked my work, and best of all, I was making my own money. I saved every penny, watching my bank account grow. It was the first time I had something that was truly mine, and I held onto it tightly. One day, after receiving a big payment, I felt brave. I wanted to share my success with Mom. We were alone in the kitchen. Kevin was away on a long drive, and my sister was at a friend's house. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking a little, "I have something to tell you." She looked up, curious. "I've been writing for a publishing company. I've been making stories and helping with apps. And, oh well, I'm making pretty good money." Her eyes widened in surprise. "Really? Oh, Linda, that's wonderful. I always knew you were a smart girl." Hearing her praise, which was so rare these days, made my heart warm. But then something changed. Her expression shifted. She looked thoughtful, almost calculating. "You know," she said, leaning in slightly, "this is actually perfect timing. We've been having some financial troubles lately." My heart sank. I should have known better than to expect her to just be happy for me. "The thing is," she continued, "this house is big, and taking care of it is expensive. And raising you hasn't been cheap either." I felt like I had been slapped. Hadn't I been the one locked away, treated like an outsider in my own home? How could I have been a burden? Mom avoided my eyes as she spoke again. "Remember that college fund we set up for you?" She hesitated. "Well, we had to use that money to keep the house. You understand, right?" I stared at her, my stomach twisting. "But now that you're earning money, you can take care of yourself, right?" I nodded slowly, unable to speak. My throat felt tight, and my chest ached. "That's my girl," Mom said, patting my hand like she had just given me good news. Oh, and one more thing. Kevin and I have been talking and we think it's best if you move out after you graduate. We're planning to fix up your room for your sister. She needs more space, you understand. I stared at her, my mind struggling to process her words. Move out? But where would I go? What? I finally managed to whisper. Mom just shrugged and turned away, already done with the conversation. You're a smart girl, Linda. I'm sure you'll figure it out. You have some savings now, right? And with that, she walked out of the kitchen, leaving me alone. The weight of her words crashed down on me. I was being kicked out. The money I had worked so hard to save, the money I thought would help me go to college, was gone. And worst of all, my own mother didn't seem to care where I ended up. The months leading up to graduation passed in a blur of stress and worry. During the day, I focused on school, determined to at least finish high school strong. At night, I worked tirelessly on my writing, trying to save every dollar I could. But no matter how hard I worked, it wasn't enough. College tuition, rent, books, it all added up to way more than I had. No matter how I did the math, I couldn't make it work. My dreams of going to college were slipping away, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. One night, I tried talking to Mom again, hoping she might change her mind. Mom, I said hesitantly, I've been looking at college costs, and I don't think I can. She cut me off before I could finish. Linda, we've been over this, she said, her voice cold. You're on your own now. You'll figure it out. Graduation day came and went. I should have felt happy, proud of myself. But I didn't. I felt empty. The next morning, Mom appeared at my door, holding 2 cardboard boxes. Time to pack up, Linda, she said, her voice fake and cheerful. Your sister is so excited about her new room. I stared at the boxes, my heart sinking. There was no discussion, no second chances. It was happening. Fighting back tears, I packed up my life in those boxes. When I finished, Mom helped me carry them to the front door. I stood there on the porch, my few belongings at my feet, waiting, hoping for her to say something, anything that would make this feel less cruel. Instead, she gave me a quick, awkward hug. Good luck out there, she said. And then she shut the door. For a moment, I just stood there, frozen. Then, taking a deep breath, I picked up my boxes and walked away from the only home I had ever known. With what little money I had, I rented a tiny studio apartment. It wasn't in the best area, and the sound of sirens often kept me awake at night. But at least it was mine. I had no choice but to delay college for a year. I needed to focus on work if I wanted to survive. Desperate for more work, I reached out to my contacts at the publishing company, practically begging for any opportunities. To my relief, they were happy to help. We've been really impressed with your work, Linda, my editor told me. How would you feel about writing children's books for us? I immediately said yes. It was the best chance I had. Soon, I was working nonstop, writing stories and creating illustrations. The work was tough, but I loved it. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was good at something. I had a purpose. Living alone wasn't easy, but I had been taking care of myself for a long time. I learned how to budget my money, cook simple meals, and use public transportation. Slowly, I started to find my way. I even made a few friends, people in my building who were also trying to make it on their own. We weren't family, but we looked out for each other, and that meant a lot. Still, no matter how hard I worked, saving for college seemed impossible. Every time I managed to put some money aside, something unexpected happened. My apartment had a plumbing problem, my laptop broke and needed repairs, or I got sick and had to pay for a doctor's visit. Each new expense ate into my savings, making my dream of college feel more and more out of reach. Then one day, exactly a year after I had left home, my phone rang. I looked at the screen and froze. It was a number I never thought I'd see again. I answered hesitantly. Linda, sweetie, how are you? My mother's voice was unusually sweet, almost too nice. I've missed you so much. Why don't you come visit us this weekend? Something felt off. My gut told me there was more to this than just missing me. But despite my doubts, curiosity won. I packed a small bag, unsure of what to expect. As soon as I arrived at my old house, my suspicions were confirmed. Mom was overly affectionate, hugging me tightly and asking endless questions about my life. Her smile seemed forced, like she was pretending to be the loving mother she never was. "Oh, Linda," she gushed, "you must be so tired from your trip. Why don't you sleep in your sister's room tonight? She can take the guest room." Confused, I nodded. My sister, now a teenager, rolled her eyes but didn't argue. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of voices downstairs. Something about them seemed familiar. Curious, I got out of bed and made my way to the kitchen. The moment I stepped inside, I froze. Sitting at the table were three people I hadn't seen in years, but I recognized them immediately. My grandparents. My dad's parents. Grandma's eyes lit up when she saw me. "Linda. Oh, look how much you've grown." I stood there in shock as they explained why they had come. "We're moving into a nursing home soon," Grandpa said, his voice rough with emotion. "But before we go, we wanted to see you, to make sure you're doing well." "Yes," Grandma added warmly. "Tell us, dear, how is college? What are you studying?" I opened my mouth, unsure of what to say, when Mom quickly jumped in. "Oh, Linda is doing wonderfully in school, aren't you, honey?" she said with a fake smile. "Top of her class, just like always." I stared at her in shock. The lies rolled off her tongue so easily, as if they were the truth. My grandparents looked happy to hear it, but they still had questions. "That's wonderful," Grandma said. "But could we talk to Linda alone for a bit? We'd love to catch up with her." For a brief moment, I saw panic flash across Mom's face. "Oh, I don't think that's necessary," she said quickly. "Linda is quite busy, aren't you, dear? In fact, we should probably wrap this up soon." Before I could say anything, she steered the conversation to other topics, talking nonstop, so I wouldn't get a chance to speak. As the visit came to an end, I felt a gentle touch on my arm. Grandma pressed something into my hand, a small business card. The moment my grandparents left, Mom's whole attitude changed. The fake warmth disappeared, replaced by the cold, distant expression I knew too well. "Well, that's done," she said briskly, clearing the table. "You should probably head home now, Linda. I'm sure you have things to do." I stood there for a second, my heart sinking. The kindness she had shown in front of my grandparents was gone. It had all been an act. She didn't care. Without another word, she pushed me toward the door. The business card felt heavy in my pocket as I walked home. The moment I stepped into my tiny apartment, I pulled it out, my hands shaking. I stared at the number for a long time before finally dialing, my heart pounding in my chest. "Hello." A familiar, warm voice answered. "Grandma, it's Linda," I whispered. For a moment, there was silence, then a mix of happiness and concern filled her voice. "Oh, Linda, sweetheart. How are you?" We talked for a long time. She asked me about my life, and for the first time in years, I felt like someone actually cared. Before I knew it, we had made plans for her and Grandpa to visit me the next day. I gave her my apartment address, feeling both excited and nervous. As soon as I hung up, I jumped into action. My small studio apartment wasn't much, but I wanted to make it as nice as possible. I scrubbed every inch, organized my few belongings, and even found a vase for fresh flowers from the corner store. That night, I barely slept. Instead, I spent hours in my tiny kitchen, carefully preparing lunch for the next day. I even decided to bake Grandma's favorite cookies, snickerdoodles, using a recipe I found online. Morning came too fast. Just as I was pulling the last batch of cookies from the oven, there was a knock at the door. Taking a deep breath, I went to answer it. I took a deep breath, smoothed down my shirt, and went to open the door. There they stood, Grandma and Grandpa. For a moment, none of us spoke. Years of separation stood between us, heavy and unspoken. Then, Grandma stepped forward and pulled me into a tight hug. "Oh, Linda," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Look at you, all grown up." I felt my chest tighten, but I hugged her back. I led them inside, and as they looked around my tiny apartment, I saw confusion flicker across their faces. "Linda," Grandpa said slowly, Why are you living here? Your mother told us you were still living in the house. Before I could explain, they started telling me a story that changed everything. We always wanted to be part of your life, Grandma said, her eyes filling with tears. But your mother wouldn't let us. She kept us away. Then they told me the truth about the night my father died, the real story. Mom had been unfaithful. She had already been pregnant with my sister when my father found out. He was devastated and wanted a divorce. But before anything could happen, the accident took his life. I sat there in shock as they continued. The house you grew up in, the one your mother and Kevin still live in, it's yours, Grandma said. Your father left it to you in his will. My stomach twisted. We've been sending money every month for your care, she went on, squeezing my hand. After you graduated, we sent even more, thinking you were in college and needed extra support. The room felt like it was spinning. All this time, I had been struggling just to survive. I had been working nonstop, counting every dollar, trying to save for college. And yet, there had been money for me all along. A house in my name. Grandpa's voice broke through my thoughts. We wanted to make sure you were doing well, that you were comfortable in the house. That's why we came to visit yesterday. I sat there, my mind racing, as the weight of their words sank in. Anger, betrayal, sadness, it all hit me at once. I don't understand, I whispered. All this time, there was money for me? A house that belonged to me. Grandma squeezed my hand tighter. Tell us everything, Linda. We need to know what really happened. So I told them. I told them about my lonely childhood, how I had spent years locked away in my room, treated like a secret. I told them about Kevin's cruelty, about always feeling like I didn't belong. I told them how the college money had been stolen, how I had been kicked out with nothing but a few boxes of my belongings. I've been working nonstop, I said, my voice breaking. Writing children's books. Living in this tiny apartment. Trying to save for college. I never knew anything about the money you sent. As I spoke, I watched my grandparents' faces change, from shock to pure fury. Grandpa's hands clenched into fists, his face turning red. This is unacceptable, he growled.
What your mother did, it's theft.
It's abuse. He looked me in the eyes, his voice firm. We're going to make this right, Linda. My grandparents kept their promise. True to their word, they took action right away. They hired a lawyer, one of the best in the city. Over the next few weeks, I watched in amazement as they fought for me. The court case was intense. Mom and Kevin tried to make me look like a rebellious, ungrateful child who had run away. But the truth was clear. The bank records showed years of stolen money. Neighbors spoke about how I had been isolated, hidden away like I didn't exist. In the end, justice won. The judge ruled in my favor, evicting Mom and Kevin from the house that rightfully belonged to me. They were also ordered to pay back all the money my grandparents had sent for my care over the years. As we walked out of the courthouse, I felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, victory, and sadness. Yes, I had won, but at what cost? The only family I had ever known, broken as it was now gone forever. But I wasn't alone anymore. Grandma and Grandpa were determined to make up for lost time. They helped me move into my house. It still felt unreal to call it that. They also gave me money for college and spent hours with me, helping me choose the right school. In the end, I picked a college close to the nursing home where they were moving. It felt right to stay near them after all the years we had been apart. For a while, everything seemed perfect. I visited Grandma and Grandpa often, soaking up their love and stories. We played chess, watched old movies, and talked for hours. They told me all about my dad, the kind of person he was, the things he loved, filling in the missing pieces of my past. I finally felt like I belonged somewhere. But life, I was learning, had a cruel way of giving with one hand and taking with the other. Just as I was settling into my new life, just as I was finally happy, tragedy struck. Grandpa went first. A sudden heart attack. Quick and unexpected. Grandma followed just 3 months later. The doctors called it natural causes, but I knew better. She had lost her will to live without him. Once again, I was alone. The grief was unbearable. I had only just found them, only just started to heal. And now they were gone. I threw myself into my studies, trying to keep busy, trying not to think about the pain. But every holiday spent alone, every achievement I couldn't share with them, felt like a fresh wound. Years passed. Slowly, life started to take shape again. I graduated college with honors and got a job at a well-known publishing house, the same company that had given me my first opportunity as a teenager. With the money my grandparents had left me, I bought a cozy apartment close to work. For the first time in my life, I had a home that was truly mine. And for the first time, my future felt bright. I rented out my grandparents' house, my childhood home. The extra money gave me a steady income, something I had never had before. For the first time in my life, I felt safe. I had stability, a good job, good friends, and most importantly, I was happy. But life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. One Friday afternoon, my phone rang. The number wasn't saved, but I recognized it right away. My mother. A strange mix of curiosity and dread filled me as I hesitated, then answered. Linda, sweetie. Her voice was overly sweet, dripping with fake affection. How are you? Before I could say anything, she launched into a sob story. My sister was pregnant. Her husband had abandoned her. Now she, Mom, and Kevin were all crammed into a tiny rented apartment, struggling to get by. We have nowhere to go, Mom whimpered. I was hoping, well, that house you own, your childhood home, could we maybe stay there? Just for a little while, until we get back on our feet. I sat in stunned silence as she went back and forth between begging and crying, using that same manipulative tone I knew too well from my childhood. Please, Linda, she pleaded. We're family. We need your help. Her words sent a flood of memories rushing back. The lonely nights locked in my room, the years of being ignored, the moment she kicked me out with nothing but a few boxes. I took a deep breath and finally spoke, my voice cold. Family? I said. That's funny, Mom. Where was this family when you locked me away like I didn't exist? Where was it when you threw me out with nowhere to go? Linda, that's all in the past, she said quickly, her voice nervous. No. I cut her off. It's not in the past. It's right here, right now. The only reason you're calling me is because you need something. Just like always. I could almost hear her scrambling, trying to find the right words to pull me back in. But I wasn't that scared, helpless girl anymore. You want my advice, Mom? Solve your own problems. Figure it out yourself. Isn't that what you told me when you kicked me out? Linda, please. Good luck, I said, repeating the same empty words she had once told me. You're going to need it. Before she could say another word, I hung up. My hands shook as I blocked her number, but I felt lighter, like a weight I had carried for years had finally lifted. For so long, I had carried the pain of her rejection, her neglect. But now I was free.